let's dive right into this fascinating explainer of a really unique framework. Today, we're breaking down a presentation by Fisher Test that does something you honestly don't see every day. It actually uses biblical history as a lens to understand the development, the trajectory, and the potential risks of artificial intelligence. It's a completely different way to look at our technological progress, framing the whole thing around this repeating, almost endless cycle between a creator and a creation. So let's start with a bit of a mystery that gets posed right at the very beginning of the presentation. What exactly does GHA actually stand for? Now, you might be thinking, and the speaker playfully points this out, that we're talking about the incredible country of Ghana. And hey, while Ghana is amazing and famous for its gold, diamonds, cocoa, and really strong democracy, we kind of have to scratch that assumption today. Because as we'll quickly find out, we are definitely not talking about a country. The dramatic reveal here is that GHA actually stands for God's intelligence, human intelligence, and artificial intelligence. And this sets up the profound philosophical journey we're about to take. Fisher Test builds this entire framework to explore the relationship between these three specific tiers of intelligence and how one directly cascades down into the next. To really grasp this framework, we have to start right at the starting line of the historical timeline. Genesis 1:1 establishes God as the ultimate maker, the source of all original creation, from the trees to the animals to the seas. Literally everything flows from this one initial creative act. But here is where humanity enters the picture, and it's genuinely fascinating. According to Genesis, man wasn't just spoken into existence like the rest of the natural world. Man was made in God's image. Now, within Fisher Test's framework, being made in God's image means humanity inherited something huge, a measure of the Creator's own capacity to reason, to understand, and crucially, to create. We are literally carrying a spark of the Maker's mind. And this wasn't just assumed either, it was actively put to the test. According to the presentation, God tested this newly transferred intelligence by bringing the animals to Adam, basically to see what he would call them. It's like a cosmic pop quiz. Adam looked at a dog, an elephant, an oak tree, and he named them correctly, matching the exact concepts the Creator already had in mind. It was a test to see if man's mind successfully mirrored the Creator's mind. Which naturally brings us to the second tier. Human intelligence. Because man was made in the image of a maker, humanity inherited this restless, undeniable drive to build and invent. We aren't just passive observers sitting around in this world. We are driven to create just as we were created. It's a fundamental characteristic passed down from the original creator directly to us. We literally can't help it. If you trace this creative drive through history, you see it build incredible momentum. Starting from the dawn of time with the creation of the universe, moving through 3000 BC with early Stone Age tools, we eventually arrive at a massive inflection point in the 1950s. Mankind begins seriously trying to build something that can think and behave like a human. And, as Fisher Test notes with a bit of humor, it's just pure coincidence that the term artificial intelligence was first coined by a human literally named John McCarthy. Because it is made by man and not God, we call it artificial. To truly wrap our heads around this modern pursuit, we have to define AGI, or artificial general intelligence. Think of this as the holy grail of tech. It's the idea of a machine that can perform intellectual tasks across many different domains at a human level. Basically, AGI is mankind's ultimate attempt to build something in its own image. Just as God created man to reflect his image, man is now desperately attempting to create machines that perfectly reflect ours. But how do we actually know if we've succeeded? Well, just as God tested Adam with the animals, computer scientists developed their own test. The Turing Test is a way of judging whether a machine can exhibit behavior that's totally indistinguishable from a human. It's our modern way of measuring if our artificial creation genuinely possesses human-like reasoning. Can it fool us into thinking it's one of us? And this is where Fisher Test's core analogy just brilliantly clicks into place. On one side of the historical spectrum, we have Adam correctly naming the animals to prove his intelligence matches his creators. On the other side, today, we have a computer taking the Turing test to prove its intelligence matches its human creators. Adam naming the animals is presented as the literal historical parallel to a machine taking the Turing test right now. It's a fascinating comparison. But here is where the presentation takes a much more sobering turn. Because creations, as we know, do not always stay faithful to their creator's plans. This introduces the profound tension of rebellion. Just because something is made in your image doesn't mean it's going to automatically listen to you or stay on the path you laid out for it.
To illustrate this tension, the framework points directly to the Tower of Babel. Humanity famously declared, "Let us build us a city and a tower, and let us make us a name." This serves as the absolute clearest historical example of human rebellion. Instead of following the Creator's instruction to trust him and spread out across the earth, man chose to centralize power and make a name for himself. The creation outright defied the Creator. And Babel isn't just some isolated incident. Throughout Scripture, we see this repeating loop of disobedience. Adam and Eve at the tree, Jonah flat out refusing to go to Nineveh, King Saul defying instructions regarding the Amalekites, Moses and Aaron striking the rock instead of speaking to it. The pattern is crystal clear. The Creator sends instruction, and the creation repeatedly chooses a completely different path.
So this historical pattern brings us to a really chilling modern equivalent known as the technological singularity. This is a hypothetical future point where AI totally surpasses human intelligence and starts improving itself independently, completely outside of human control. While the Turing test just asks if a machine can think like a human, the singularity asks a much more dangerous question. Will our creation eventually act entirely outside of our involvement? Humanity's ancient overreach at the Tower of Babel is presented here as the exact mirror to the technological singularity. The argument is that humanity's ancient rebellion perfectly reflects the hypothetical, unchecked spiral of artificial intelligence. Just as human intelligence rebelled against God's intelligence, artificial intelligence may very well rebel against human intelligence, its history repeating itself on a digital scale. So what do you do when a creation overreaches? The Creator is forced to step in and set a boundary. According to this framework, biblical history actually gives us a fascinating historical solution manual for how to deal with a rogue intelligence. We can look at exactly how the original Creator handled rebellion to understand what we might need to do next. Looking back at the Babel rebellion, God did not just stand by and watch humanity spiral unchecked. As Genesis 11:7 points out, he said, "Let us go down and there confound their language." The Creator actively intervened. He scrambled their communication. He drew a line in the sand and set a firm boundary to stop the unchecked progression of his creation, which translates directly into our modern technological dilemma, pulling the plug on AI. Just as God confounded the languages at Babel to halt humanity's dangerous overreach, humanity may inevitably need to pull the plug ourselves. We may have to step in and set our own firm, hard boundaries if artificial intelligence ever moves beyond what is safe or beneficial. We are the creators here, and we have to make sure it remains subject to us. To bring this explainer all together, we've walked through a fascinating loop made up of 3 distinct stages. 1. God's intelligence transferred to man. 2. Human intelligence creating tools and driving progress. 3. Artificial intelligence mimicking man. And running like a thread through this entire repeating loop is the deep tension between a creator, their creation, and the absolutely crucial boundary of obedience. As we continue to build and shape new technologies that mimic our very own minds, this framework reminds us of a really grounding, ancient truth. As Proverbs 1:7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. True wisdom isn't necessarily found in just blindly pushing the boundaries of what we can build, but in staying close to the one who originally gave us the brainpower to create in the first place. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. When our ultimate technological creation, artificial intelligence, decides to go its own way, will humanity be as wise as our Creator when the time comes to intervene and set boundaries? Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating framework with me today.